In my reality, it was happening. Okay. And then some Panditji gave us some petra to do this nariyal thing and whatever. And when we did that,
So if you were on LSD,
yeah,
you will see and hear things. If you were on mushrooms, you will see and hear things. For you, it's real.
wait, my left brain is telling my right brain,
To tell your left
hand to move.
Suppose if you don't sleep for 1 day, 2 days properly, that junk gets absorbed into the brain itself.
And that's what then eventually leads
That's
to
what leads to
Alzheimer's dementia.
Alzheimer's dementia, yes.
Wow. So that's how sleep is important.
Yeah. In fact, I can cause you more pain by talking about pricking you with a pin than by actually pricking your brain with a pin.
Oh my God.
My problem with manifestation is that for most people, they think that just like how I thought of a ghost and the ghost came, if I think of a positive thing, that positive thing will.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of That Healing Feeling with me, Neha Ranglani. And today's episode, we are going to dive deep into brain health. Now, we focus so much on our gut health, on our physical health, but really, we don't pay too much attention to our brain health, which deserves all the love and attention. My guest for today, Dr. Sid Warrier, is a Mumbai-based neurologist and an educator, and he's going to help us with all the information we need to improve our brain health. Through his YouTube channel, he simplifies neuroscience, explores mental health and human behavior, and fosters conversations on mindfulness, learning, and productivity. So join me in welcoming Dr. Sid Warrier. Welcome, Dr. Sid. I'm so excited to have you here on my podcast, and I can't wait for you to spill the beans on brain health, which is something that most people really don't pay attention to, right?
That's true, and thank you for having me.
So, Dr. Sid, tell me for how long? I'll call you Sid. Yeah, Dr.
Perfect.
Sid is just becoming too formal.
That absolutely works, yes.
So, Sid, tell me for how long have you been doing this and, been into the field of neurology?
So I've been practicing as a neurologist for almost 7 years now. I started in early 2019. And neuroscience has been a passion of mine for the longest time. But since the pandemic, I've started teaching neuroscience online on my YouTube channel. And it has been a very rewarding journey. I've realized that a lot of people share that passion with me.
Right.
A lot of people are curious about how their brain works. And lately, I've realized that it's not just a passion. People deserve to know. Everyone deserves to know what is going on in their brains because it's affecting them. It's affecting every decision that they're taking. So now it's gone on from a passion to almost a mission. I want to tell people about what is going on.
Right. What is neuroscience exactly, if you can break it down for us?
In simple terms, it's how your brain works.
Okay.
Not just your brain, your spinal cord, your nerves. So how your entire body is connected together and how you function as a human being, that is neuroscience. So for me, it brings together all my years of experience as a doctor, plus it brings some other fields together as well, like psychology, even philosophy to some extent, even spirituality. So neuroscience seems to be the meeting point of all these fields.
Yes. So is there a difference between neurology and neuroscience?
There is. So neuroscience is the mother field because it is the study of the core workings of the brain. Neurology is when something goes wrong in neuroscience. So when there's something wrong in the brain or the spinal cord, that is when a neurologist will come in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Also, I've been hearing a lot about this term neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
What is it? How does it work? And what changes does it bring to our brain?
Neuroplasticity refers to the property of the neurons. So neurons are the brain cells, and all the neurons connect with each other through these signals called synapses. Now, neuroplasticity is when neurons can connect with each other in a different way. So they can break apart their earlier connection and form new connections. So when you're learning something new, or when you're unlearning something you've already learned, that happens because of neuroplasticity.
Wow. So does that mean that you can rewire your brain in a way to become a new person completely?
Theoretically, yes, you can do that. But there are certain networks that have been formed so long ago and that have been formed with such intensity that it's not, all networks are not as easy to break apart. So depending on how much effort you want to put in, you can rewire your brain to any extent.
So say, for example, addictions. That's a certain pattern.
Yes.
Or negative thinking for that matter, or procrastination for that
Yes.
matter. These are all patterns that we have created over a period of time.
Yes.
Can we break those with neuroplasticity?
Absolutely, yes. So that is the theory of neuroplasticity, that if you have formed certain patterns, those patterns have been formed because at some point your brain thought that this is the best and most efficient way to live
Right.
and to survive. So breaking that pattern involves convincing your brain that actually you've made a mistake, that alcohol is not the way, or smoking is not the best way to get pleasure or satisfaction, and relearning those networks.
And how do you do that?
So that is the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a multi-level process. First, understanding where that pattern got formed in the first place. Usually, any kind of addiction would happen on the background of some unmet need. And so your brain will reach out for what it considers as an easy source of dopamine.
Yeah.
Dopamine is a pleasure and motivation molecule. And the dopamine network is where addictions form.
Yeah.
So whenever you reach out for an easy source of dopamine, your brain figures out that, oh, I've been trying so hard to feel good. Here is a chemical that can make me feel good automatically. So why do I need to do everything else when I can just go for this? So in a way, it makes sense. Addiction is a very logical thing for the brain to do if it ignores everything else. So part of recovery from addiction is understanding that all those other things that you were ignoring is actually more important. So a part of addiction recovery is giving a lot of support, because recovering from that instant source of dopamine is not easy. Giving that up is not easy. So whoever comes out of it needs a lot of love and support during that time, and increasing the value of everything else. So how valuable is your job? How valuable is your family? How valuable is your physical health? All these things have to come into your mind to offset the dopamine that you're getting from that, one chemical.
Yeah. So say for example, someone's had a breakup.
Yeah.
Okay. And they get into alcohol addiction, or say smoking addiction for that matter, to numb their pain, to feel better with whatever they are feeling. They don't want to feel the heartache. And that becomes a pattern for the brain, where the brain feels, oh, this is the safer way to feel better. And it's just like it's just within my access to just pick that thing up, consume it, and I'll feel good.
Yeah.
But then if someone who has to break that addiction, who's gone through a breakup,
Yeah.
what is it that you would recommend them?
So there are two steps to it. One is they have turned towards this one chemical as a form of coping.
Yeah.
And so there are always healthier ways of coping. So if you are in pain, there are healthier ways of numbing that pain.
Okay.
So switching them from that addictive substance to a healthier form of coping, number one. But even that is a temporary measure. Ultimately, the cause of the pain has to be dealt with.
Okay.
So whatever it is that is bringing pain, if that is not resolved, everything eventually becomes ineffective. So if somebody has gone through a heartbreak, then dealing with that heartbreak itself, coming to terms with that heartbreak, what we consider as stages of grief.
Yeah.
So initially there could be denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. While that framework is now questioned, there is still a lot of wisdom to it, that people do tend to go through some or all of these stages in any order, but eventually you do need to reach acceptance.
Yeah.
And until you reach acceptance, that pain will keep circling. So how you reach that acceptance is important. And until you do that, pain will keep coming. And so people will keep having to find ways of coping.
Right. So probably acceptance is where then the therapy comes in, where you talk to
Yes.
people, or
Yes.
then you meditate, you journal, you do these
Yes.
kind of activities where you come in touch with your own feelings. So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's feeling your feelings to heal your feelings, right?
Absolutely. Because you cannot solve what you don't see.
Right.
Right. So until you acknowledge that, yes, this emotion exists and I am in pain because of this reason, you can't even begin to solve it.
Yeah.
So the reason that people turn towards unfortunate ways of coping is that they feel that I can't cope with this, or I can't fix this problem.
It's too heavy.
It's too heavy.
I can't deal with it.
Correct.
So let me do this because this is just makes me Disconnect from my pain?
Yeah, let me forget about it for a
Yeah.
while. It's that whole denial phase of it.
So that's how somebody overcomes addiction.
Yes, this entire process. Now we spoke about it in 5 minutes, but for somebody going through it, it could take 5 months, 5 years.
Absolutely.
The more amount of social support they have, and the more amount of motivation that they have. I remember when I was in my psychiatry posting, I was an intern at the psychiatry at the addiction clinic, and my professor told me that one of the strongest indicators to know whether somebody will come out of addiction or not is who is coming to the clinic. Are they coming to the clinic themselves, or is the wife or the parent bringing the patient?
Same thing with us also. No? If somebody is bringing, like say the husband tells the wife, listen, you have to lose weight, so do it. You
Yeah.
have to go to the nutritionist. And then when they come, the results are not as effective because then the readiness and the willingness is not 10 on 10.
Exactly.
It's somewhere like 3 or 4 on 10, which doesn't lead them to sustainable actions that can get them to results.
So that core motivation makes a big difference.
Interesting. And what about fear? Now, fear is a very real thing in our head.
Yeah.
Though we know it's an illusion, but actually it's an illusion because what we are thinking is too big in our head but may not be so big outside. But how do you like break patterns of fear in your brain which is stopping you to reach your highest potential?
So it's interesting that you say that. Fear itself is not an illusion. You have fear because of very real events. Most of the time. Fear evolved as a very real and practical response to dangers in the outside world. Survival. And a lot of neural energy has been spent in making those networks strong, because somebody without fear would not survive.
Okay.
Even today, if I have no fear, I would not look on both sides of the road before crossing, right? I would not be careful when I'm chopping vegetables or lighting a matchstick.
Yeah.
Why would I? If I didn't care, why would I take care of anything? Why would I be afraid of what I say in public? So fear of social rejection is what makes us behave like social animals, fear of death is what makes us not be reckless. And a life without fear would be very short-lived. So you do need fear to keep things in check. The problem is that fear can make you hallucinate. So if you are afraid, you will start seeing things that don't exist. In fact, most of the ghost stories have come about because of fear.
Yeah.
So you are in the dark, you are in a house by yourself, you can start hearing things and seeing things that don't exist. Your brain literally hallucinates when it is afraid. And that sets off a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because you're afraid, you will see things, hear things. Because you've seen things and heard things, you are more afraid. And so you can spiral. And that is one of the baseline principles of anxiety. So when you have fear, you will have more fear.
But one second, do you think that those things don't exist because...
Ghosts?
I'm not talking about ghosts, but things you hear and see. Is it just your brain doing it and not really real?
There is a line in Harry Potter which goes very similar to this, where Dumbledore asks Harry asks Dumbledore that, does that mean just because it was happening in my head, does that mean none of it was real? And Dumbledore says, so what if it was happening in your head? It is real for you. So if I am afraid and I see a ghost, it is very, very real for me because I could have a heart attack, which is a very real thing. So the consequences of fear are very real. It doesn't matter if it was real for everybody else. This is something that it's important for people to understand. The consequences of fear are real. It need not be objectively real for anyone else. It need not be measurable. Nobody else needs to be convinced that what you are afraid of is real or not. For me, the consequences are real.
But what about people who hear and see things like the clairvoyants, the clairaudience? And I've heard things when I was in Igatpuri in a resort working.
Yes.
I wasn't afraid. There was no fear.
Yeah.
But things were happening around me. And then the fear built in when I saw something happening.
Yeah.
And it was real for me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is real for you. the insistence on objective reality only comes in if you are trying to convince others. So if you're trying to do a public study, if you're trying to conclude something that will affect other people, then we need objective evidence. But if you are talking of something that you experienced, your brain is capable of creating any reality. Thankfully for you, that only lasted for that much time.
Yeah.
If it lasts for a much longer time, that is when we start talking of schizophrenia and things like that. Because for somebody suffering from schizophrenia, that sense of reality shifting happens all the time. But fear can make you hallucinate for a short amount of time. So for you, it is real. You probably did see and hear things out of fear. Psychedelics can do the same thing.
Yeah.
So if you were on LSD,
Yeah.
you will see and hear things. If you were on mushrooms, you will see and hear things. For you, it's real. For everybody around you, they will just see you acting silly. But for you, you are actually seeing and hearing things. Your brain is capable of creating those things.
Okay.
That's what I meant.
Okay. And what about the fears that we create in our head, like thinking of the worst case scenarios?
Yeah.
Like you rightly said, okay, fear is real for me, but then fear you can hallucinate.
Yeah.
What I meant when I said fear is an illusion is of the bigger fears which are not real. Like it's not real in the sense, say I'm going on the stage to speak and I'm fearing that people will judge me or something will go wrong.
Yeah.
Now that hasn't happened, but I'm fearing the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Or say when I'm taking a flight, I feel that I will, die in the flight when when there's a
If the plane crashes.
if the plane crashes, so definitely, but
Yeah.
even with turbulence.
Turbulence, right.
So these are all fears that people, like,
Yeah.
it's real in their head, but it's not happened to them. It's not happening to them also
Yeah.
in physical reality. It's not like tangibly they can't see this thing happening, but they're still fearing things.
Yeah.
What is that? Like, how do you overcome those fears of the unseen, of the unknown,
Yeah.
and uncertainty maybe?
I would say in the spectrum of all the things that we are afraid of, these are still very rational. Because when there is turbulence, there is still a hypothetical chance that something can go wrong in your
No, there
flight.
are people who fear getting onto the plane because of
Yes,
turbulence.
yes.
That fear in the head is so real.
Correct.
Obviously, when there's turbulence, we all will feel it
You're right.
because it's in our reality at that moment.
Exactly.
But there are people who don't take flights because they have the fear of turbulence. Plane crash to bahut dur ka baat hai.
Correct.
It's like,
Absolutely.
hota वैसे ही मरोगे.
So you've heard of phobias,
Yeah, phobia.
right? So we are talking in the realm of phobia now.
Yeah.
So there are people who are very, very afraid of spiders. Because maybe at some point as a child, they might have seen some documentary on National Geography that there are some poisonous spiders. Maybe. In fact, the fear of insects is very deep down.
Yeah.
Lizards, any creepy crawlies, because of if they fall on your hand, you can feel them walking. You get a sense of
I had a lizard fall on my head
right.
in Bali. And after that, I
Right.
got over that fear. After that, it went through my leg. And I was like, it's okay. It's fine.
Yeah.
You're there. Like, the fear went away.
Yeah, I'm glad that it went away, because actually most of them don't harm you, and until you spend some time with it, you cannot get over it. So I've always been anybody who's seen Jaws and Deep Blue Sea, and you
Yeah.
are afraid of sharks. So I remember after I saw Jaws, I had gone swimming in my swimming pool, in my club swimming pool, and I was afraid to swim to the deep end because of sharks.
Oh my God.
I was 14 or 15, but I remember feeling afraid of swimming to the deep end because what if there are sharks?
And you clearly know, like your conscious brain
Of
knows
course.
that there is no shark
How
there.
can there be sharks there?
Exactly.
I saw this movie called Piranhas.
Yes.
Right? And in that movie, somehow from the river or lake, the piranhas end up in a local pond where people are swimming.
Yeah.
And they come from underneath and eat you up.
Yeah.
I was afraid of swimming to the deep end. Now, that is what fear does. Fear makes you stop thinking logically, right? I don't care how many people tell me, of course, there are no sharks. I know there are no sharks, but I can't stop my body from reacting as if a shark will come up just now.
But what happens in your brain? Like, what is the brain thinking and doing at that point when
It's not.
reality, it knows the reality, but it doesn't.
It's not thinking. So as soon as there is fear of this extent, something called freeze, fight, flight response kicks in.
Okay.
So before the fight and flight, there is freezing. So my brain stops thinking. The next is fight. But how do I fight a shark? So then there is flight, like get out, bhago. Because clearly this is not something that I can fight.
So then the brain can't distinguish basically.
Correct.
That this is not reality.
It's not reality. So when you are in that moment, no matter how logical you are, you cannot convince yourself that this is not real. So whatever happened to you in Igatpuri, in that moment, even if 100 people would have come and proved to you कि ये नहीं है, you would have still felt it. And the reason I know this is because I did an experiment on myself. Around 6-7 months ago, I went and bought a doll. A small little child's doll.
Not the Annabelle, no?
No. At least not at the beginning. So I went and bought a doll and I kept the doll in the house and I shot a reel with my wife that this doll is haunted. Okay.
Your wife agreed to do that with
yes,
you.
She regretted it later. But the doll was for 250 rupees. I bought the doll myself. I know that there were 100 dolls in that shop. I just got one.
Yeah.
And we shot a reel. It was like a funny reel. And the purpose of the reel was to show that you can create a ghost just by the act of thinking that this is haunted. Okay. The doll was there. We shot the reel. The doll was lying in the corner of the house. A week later, my wife was not, she was traveling out of Bombay and I was sleeping in the house and it was raining and I heard something fall in the living room because of the wind. And I went out there and some books had fallen down and there was the doll there. Now, this is what I mean by fear makes you hallucinate. Every logical cell in my body is saying,
the doll has done it.
no, that the wind has done this.
Okay.
Like the logical part of me saying the wind has done this. But the damn doll is there. And I am so afraid. I can feel it. I can feel every aspect of fear. I'm panicking.
Yeah.
I switched on all the lights in the house, of course.
Yeah.
And it was so fascinating to me how me as the most logical person can still do this. So if I can feel this, knowing everything that I know about the brain and the body, I can easily imagine somebody who doesn't know all this to absolutely believe that ghosts exist, paranormal activity exists. How can they not? It is so real. So now I will never try to convince anybody that there's no such thing as
No, but
ghosts.
it's not just me. Me and my colleague both felt it. Both saw the same thing.
Of
It's not
course.
both of us cannot have the same fear. It happened at the same time.
You can have the same fear. That's the beauty of it. So you can have group hallucinations.
What?
Yes. An entire group can hallucinate the same thing. And the brain is capable. People do not understand how capable your brain is. It is capable of incredible things.
That I agree.
I have seen people getting a rash on their hand because someone has told them that touching you will give you a rash.
Yeah. These things manifest. I understand because your brain is very powerful.
Yes. That's all I'm trying to say. Your brain is more powerful than you know. And rather than inventing a new branch of physics that does not exist, please trust that your brain is more powerful than you know. It can create entire realities that don't exist. And it can affect you. It is real for you. You can feel pain. You can get rashes. You can get claw marks. Your brain can create all of it.
Wow. So before we move ahead with this interesting conversation on brain health with Dr. Sid Warrier, I want to take a moment to give a quick shout out to Urban Platter for being our generous sponsors for season 1 of That Healing Feeling with me, Neha Ranglani. Okay, so you're saying that what I saw and what my colleague also saw, my brain created it.
Yeah.
But it was, okay, in my reality, it was happening. Okay. And then some Panditji gave us some petra to do this nariyal thing and whatever. And when we did that, it stopped happening.
Yeah.
And another thing is that dogs usually sense energies,
Yeah.
right? So that was the resort that we used to go very often for work because we were doing a project with them. So the first time the dogs were all around us outside our room sitting and just being playful and stuff. The second time on, when this happened, when this episode was happening with us every day, something or the other was happening, the dogs weren't coming close to us. And when we did that narel ka thing, and whatever we heard, whatever we saw, we asked the pandit ji and we did that thing. Immediately, like literally in 5 minutes, the dogs came and sat around us. What does this prove? I want to know, Sid. Yeah, I'm just like, am I mad or what?
You're not mad at all. The point of saying all this is not about being mad or anything. It is about how much our brain and our body are connected.
Yeah.
And there is a very strong connection between body language and the way we think. So threat and safety is conveyed. So if you are thinking that I am dangerous to you, for example, right? If somebody has come and told you that, listen, stay away from Siddharth. He's dangerous. The way you will behave with me, even if you're saying the right things, the way you behave with me will convey to me that, okay, you are not comfortable. Whereas if you are thinking friendly things about me, even if you're saying the right things, everything about you will change.
Yeah.
I truly believe that these things are what we mean by energy, because we put some things out there. We convey certain things out there and people respond to those things. Animals respond to those things. I have found this to be a very interesting thing, that people would rather believe a completely unknown branch of science exists or a completely unknown world exists rather than believe that their brain and body is capable of so much of this. Whereas for me, it's the exact opposite. I get extremely excited by the possibility that think of what your brain is capable of, that it can actually create these paranormal experiences for you.
Wow. I'll have to really I'll need some time to wrap my head around this, because in my reality, it was super real.
It is real. I once went on an escape room, okay? And it was a haunted escape room where I was alone in a room. It was completely dark and the lights flickered on for a second and there was a girl standing in front of me. And then the light flickered again and she disappeared. Now this whole thing is directed. Like they had told us beforehand, ki, listen, something will happen. If somebody appears in front of you, don't punch them. Because that's a real person pretending to be a ghost.
Thank God.
Okay. Even then, fat gayi meri. I was terrified. Imagine being in a dark, like completely pitch black room. The lights flicker on and there's a girl with hair on in front of her face.
Yeah.
And then flickers again and she's gone.
It's like that Ring.
The escape room was based on that.
When I saw the Ring movie, I couldn't see TV for like at least a month after that because I thought she'll come out.
Exactly. This is how you this is how you hallucinate. So believe me, if you can create these environments, you can make anyone believe anything.
So, if we can believe all this, can we believe the positive side of life? And can we believe that the best of the best can happen to us? And we can make that a possibility?
Yes.
Is that what manifestation is?
There is a lot
now you can answer.
more to manifestation, but this is a very, very important part of it. Basically, if you can trick yourself, if fear can make you hallucinate extremely negative things, then you can also think of very, very positive things and give your body the benefits of all that positivity.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
My problem with manifestation is that for most people, they think that just like how I thought of a ghost and the ghost came, if I think of a positive thing, that positive thing will come. Which doesn't happen.
Why like that?
Because the ghost is in your head. You want the positive thing in real life. So if just because I'm thinking of a beach facing house in Colaba and a Mercedes car, it's real in my head. But there is a distance between what is in your head and reality. Right? So at some point you'll come out of that what's in your head and you look around and nothing has happened and you'll think, arey, kyun nahi hua hai? So it is not about how powerfully you manifest it. At some point, it is a precursor to action. So my issue with manifestation has always been that it's not magic. The reason people are attracted to magic is because they think they are getting a lot by doing very little.
And instantly.
So the draw of magic is I'll wave a wand and something will appear, which goes against all the lessons that evolution has taught us, which means even for a fruit, I have to climb a tree and take a fruit and run the risk of falling and dying. This is what evolution has taught us, that whatever you want, you have to work for it. Magic opens up a possibility of getting something without working for it, which is huge, which is why people are attracted to magic.
Yeah.
Everybody wants
miracles.
Yes,
happening
everybody
instantly.
wants that. Everybody wants a cheat code. This is universally true. You tell anyone that here is a cheat code to life, they will fall for it. Here is a hack to become a crorepati, they will fall for it. Anything but work, tell me, give me. And this is not because they are lazy. It is because we are wired to look for better solutions.
Yeah.
जो जुगाड़ बोलते हैं ना, we are evolutionarily wired to look for जुगाड़.
Yeah.
And magic is the ultimate जुगाड़. Miracles is the ultimate जुगाड़ कि तुम ये प्रसाद खा लो तुम्हें ये मिल जाएगा. प्रसाद खाने का effort is so little.
Yeah.
Mercedes खरीदने का effort is so big. So your brain thinks, अरे क्या deal मिल गया मुझे.
But I think manifestation is also a lot about your energy, right? So if you want something, you got to feel that energy. I think this is where the secret sort of faltered, because it didn't talk about the energy aspect. It just spoke about the thought aspect. You got to think of the good things. But the energy, so the happiness that you will feel when you get a Mercedes, or, the bliss you will feel to live in your plush penthouse or whatever.
Yeah.
That feeling, if you can carry on for a certain time when you're meditating and you live that energy, basically you tap into that energy again and again. And then, of course, you put the actions in the right direction, is when that thing gets manifested in your life. And then obviously in divine timing, because there's a time for everything.
So here's the contradiction, which is, I think of manifestation as warming up before working out. If you manifest properly, if you think about what is it that you want, basically what you're doing in your brain is you're motivating yourself and you're setting your goals.
Right.
If you've manifested something, you're also saying that this is what I want and all the rest of it I don't want. So if you've manifested properly, you are also setting your priorities. You're telling yourself, you're telling the world that this is what I want, which is great. You should do that. It's like warming up. If you do that, your workout becomes easier. But if you only warm up and come back home, you are never going to get a good physique, right? So my problem again with anybody who talks about manifestation is that they're selling a warm up like as if it's a workout. Don't do that, because what you said about the action will follow, for many people the actions don't follow.
They just stop at the thought.
Yes, they just go do a little stretching and they come back thinking ki ho gaya. Whereas the actual physical benefit comes from working out. You have to lift weights, you have to do the push-ups, you have to sweat, you have to get tired, you have to feel the pain of the muscles the next day morning. तो ही workout होगा. But the warm-up helps. क्योंकि अगर stretching नहीं किया तो you can have injury. So if you've not manifested or if you've not set your priorities, you might run out of motivation. For me, that is the important thing. Like
Right.
manifest karo.
Interesting. Yeah.
Right?
So think about the good things, and then hard work to karna hi hai if you want it into your
Exactly.
reality, basically.
Correct. And the main difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is the hard work.
Yeah.
I always feel
Yeah.
this. It's not the manifestation.
Yeah. That was interesting, Sid. I really didn't know the conversation is going to go in that direction, but it was fun for sure. Now, circling back on neuroplasticity, I want to understand, are there specific activities that help in rewiring the brain for your betterment, like maybe for positive thoughts or motivating you or reducing your fears and phobias? So
Yeah.
what are those kind of activities that one can do?
So we could divide it into 3 sections. The first is taking care of your body, because all the thoughts are ultimately built on whether your brain is healthy or not.
Right.
And your brain's health depends on your body's health. So this is something that is often ignored in conversations around neuroplasticity. But I've realized over time that no amount of positive thinking can correct for an unhealthy body.
Okay. Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
So what you eat is a very, very core thing. So if you're eating healthy, downstream, it becomes easier to think positively. If your sleep is good, downstream, it becomes easier to think positively. So make that foundation of sleep, diet, and movement, and you'll find that everything else that I'm going to say is going to come easier to you rather than an uphill battle. So that is the foundation. If this is not there, then nothing else comes in. The second thing is positive thinking comes from a very evolved part of the brain. That's the prefrontal cortex. But before that is a primitive part of the brain. That is the limbic system.
Right.
This is where all your memories are. This is where your emotions are. The things that you desire deep down, who you are, your identity, even the things that you fear, which is also a part of your identity. That is all part of your limbic system. Understanding this part of you is very, very important, because when you say, if you're thinking positively about something, you say that this is what I want, does that match with who you are
Yeah.
at your core?
Okay.
Because if it doesn't, that means that you are in a constant battle with yourself. So these three levels, taking care of your body and just understanding who you are at your core, which usually happens through a lot of self-reflection, journaling, therapy, meditation. These are all ways of coming to terms with who you are.
Who you are, your authentic self.
Your
Yes.
authentic self. So you're not in conflict. So everybody is in touch with their positive sides. They know what they're good at. They might even overestimate what they're good at. But very few people come to terms with their flaws.
Yeah.
And you usually come to terms with your flaws after somebody's pointed it out, maybe a partner. So if you are not open enough to receive those flaws or receive that criticism and work on yourself, you will always get stuck.
Yeah.
Because those flaws will keep coming in again and again, right? So, and this takes a long time. It takes years before you are comfortable with your own flaws and you understand that, this is me. I am flawed like this. So let me communicate better to overcome all of that. Once you do this and your body is healthy, now you will really reap the benefits of positive thinking. Because now if you look at the future and you say that this is what I want, we talked of manifestation. You also mentioned affirmation, which is a great way of just setting yourself in line. So one example of a good affirmation that I would use is, today I will be calm. Or if you are about to go into work, if you're about to go into a meeting, you will say that this is what I would like to be, or this is who I am. You say that line to yourself and everything aligns itself.
So basically that's intention setting.
Exactly. It's intention setting. And it makes a big difference. And I learned this in two ways. One is theoretically. I was reading about how intention sets the tone for your emotions, for your actions. But last year I did a week of acting workshop.
Wow.
Okay. Just out of curiosity. And I understood how much intention makes a difference. So I'm given a script. It's a sad script. It's a story of a man who's lost his wife and he's contemplating suicide. He's contemplating self-harm. Now that's not something I can relate to. And so when I'm reading the script, nothing is coming out. Nobody's believing me. But I did around 4 hours of work. I sat and wrote down what that man must be feeling, how his emotions are. And at the end, I came up with one line that I can repeat to myself, that I've lost it all. And this line I kept repeating to myself. And while that line was going on, I read the script. And everything was different. My voice was different. My expressions were different. People believed me when I said that my wife died. Just because I was repeating that line to myself. So those kind of lines do work. but you have to work on it. It's not just saying it, you have to really get into that state of mind, and then everything will just follow.
Nice. So that's how you rewire your brain.
Yeah.
But are there any simple activities? Because I've seen people on the internet talk about using your non-dominant hand for brushing your teeth or doing any household chore, because then it activates different parts of your brain, or doing activities like this, like, where you're using your fingers to kind of do things which strengthen your brain. So what about that? Does that work?
Not really.
Not
I
really?
hate to break it to you.
Really?
No, because
No, don't break my heart.
I know, I'm sorry. But I'll tell you what it does. It does bring your attention to the fact that you want to work on yourself. Okay? And if you're brushing with your left hand, my understanding of this is that now you have sort of announced that intention to yourself that now you want to be more mindful of what you're doing. So you've broken a pattern. Now you've brought attention to yourself, and in a way it is a grounding exercise.
So it doesn't do anything for your brain?
Everything you do will do something to your brain.
As in to improve the brain health?
For what outcome? Now here is the
context.
thing. Yes. So if you brush with your left hand, you will become better at doing things with your left hand. Does that mean you will succeed at your job?
No.
No. But you will become better at your left hand, which is great. It's useful.
No, but doesn't it work on some other part of your brains which helps you in other activities?
No. So that is the thing that I want to break. So they say the right side of your brain is more dominant for pattern recognition. The left side of your brain is more dominant for mathematics and identification of things. Both sides have to work together for you to navigate any complex situation, right? So for example, if you're singing, if you're playing a guitar, or if you're playing a piano, the individual notes will be recognized by the left side, but the harmony will be recognized by the right side. If either one side is not working, music will not happen. Similarly, in conversations, the words that I'm saying is coming from my left side. How I'm saying it is coming from my right side. If both are not working, I will not be a good conversationalist. If I'm brushing with my left hand, technically, the right side of my brain is active. But what people don't understand is that all movement comes from the left side of the brain. So even if I'm brushing with my left hand, my left brain is telling my right brain to tell my left hand. Okay. So movement will help with movement.
Wait, my left brain is telling my right brain
to tell your left
hand to move.
Yes, because all movement plans are coming from the left side. Yes. Okay?
Complex.
It is complex, which is why oversimplification of certain things, when I read it, I'm like, neurology to padha nahi hai. Bolte ja rahe log. It's not fair because it's incorrect.
It's wrong information. It's misinformation.
And I understand why. It's almost tempting, right?
It's instant, no.
Yes, it's almost tempting
gratification. I brush with my left hand. My right brain is super healthy now.
And the beautiful thing is, that might work. Just having you truly believe that my right brain is now active and my chakras are aligned and now whatever I do will work, that belief might actually work.
Yeah, it's the belief that at the end of the day works.
Correct. But what you do has had nothing to do with it. So this is the contradiction. This is the core conflict of the self-help stuff, even religion. Like, तुमने ये प्रसाद खा लिया तो आज का दिन अच्छा जाएगा. If you believe it, it might actually work because the way you go through your life situations will be different.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, faith and belief makes mountains move, right? So again, your brain.
Yes.
It's what it can achieve.
Exactly.
I'm learning from you, Sid. See, I'm joining the dots.
I love it.
It's like a master class right now for me.
I love it. So the outcome might be the same, but the reasons are different. And if you say that reason se farak nahi padta, fine. But if you are serious about knowing why something happened, then this is why.
So basically, it all boils down to how you treat your body, how well you sleep, and then what you do in your day-to-day life, which builds your brain health, not just these activities.
Because what you want is not to be successful today. What you want is to find success overall in life,
Yeah.
right? And so it's not just about learning one activity. You have to be successful in everything you do. And for that, there are certain things. It will take time, but what else is worth more
Yeah.
than this?
Obviously. We are always work in progress. That's what we are.
Exactly.
Till the time we die, we are work in progress. So
Correct. That being said, I don't want to leave you feeling like no activity will benefit your brain. There are some things that really make a difference.
give me the meat right now.
Yeah. So you can brush with either hand, it's fine. But I believe that everyone should learn emotional regulation. Stress will keep happening. You will keep feeling angry, upset, sad, jealous. Those things will keep happening. Every time you feel a negative emotion, your body goes into fight and flight to different degrees.
Yeah,
Sometimes
yeah.
it's so mild that you won't even know it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's so obvious that everybody in the room knows it. But you should learn to recognize when are you feeling threatened and when are you feeling safe. As soon as you start feeling threatened, there are some things that you can do to calm your body down.
Like?
Number one is to start moving, but move slowly.
Mindfully.
Yes. So the mistakes that people make is when they go into fight and flight, either they freeze, so they don't move at all. That is a problem. Or they get fidgety. They'll keep like
this,
tapping
this.
hands,
Yeah.
this, right? Just get up and go for a walk. Just the simple repetitive action of swinging your arms and swinging your legs and walking will automatically bring your body from a sympathetic, that is a fight and flight, to a parasympathetic. So you are going into rest. Very effective, very efficient. 5 minutes of walking can really change the way you think about a particular problem. If you're fighting with somebody and that somebody is close to you, go for a walk with them.
And fight over there?
Don't talk.
You think that's possible,
It is.
Sid?
If both of them agree, then say, for example, if you and I are fighting and it's not going anywhere, just walk 5 minutes, don't talk, or walk separately. Fine. Walk separately.
I think that's better.
Fair enough. And you'll find that 5 minutes later, that same argument will be held very differently.
Yeah, it will be more productive. Like you'll come up to a conclusion which is going to be more productive.
Because you'll be able to think better. So this is a very, very clean hack that everyone can use. The second one is deep breathing. The simplest hack. You can literally do it anywhere.
Yeah.
Just take out 1 minute, go to a corner, sit, close your eyes, just deep breathe for a minute and you'll find that things are better. Drink water. So one of the things that fight and flight does is your throat becomes dry. You'll feel it. As soon as you go into anxiety, your throat has become fully dry.
Yeah.
Drink water. Just the act of drinking water puts your
Calms you
body
down.
into parasympathetic. Because sympathetic means you are at war. You're fighting an animal. You're fighting something dangerous. वो time पे पानी कौन पिएगा? The fact that you're drinking water is a signal to your brain that you are safe.
Yeah.
So simple things, do them again and again, and you'll find that small problems don't turn into big problems. But you have to do this. You have to make it a habit.
And you have to remember.
Exactly.
You have to remind yourself that awareness is important, that at this point I'm feeling this, and at this point I'm not going anywhere with my emotions. So let me just take a break and do something that brings me back to equilibrium, basically.
If somebody has built that self-awareness, they've already done the hardest work.
Yeah, I think that's the
That's
toughest
it.
job.
The problem is, as soon as you're stressed out, you stop being a human, you turn into an animal. And animals don't have self-awareness. They will just bark or bite.
Yeah.
If you are human, build that self-awareness. Know that something is wrong. Then you'll find a solution.
Right.
And the earlier you spot that something is wrong,
Like
the
nip it
easier
in the
is.
bud type
Exactly.
of thing.
Exactly.
You know, you also spoke about piano, which brings me to my next question. That is, how do these activities help? Because I'm learning piano right
Oh,
now.
lovely.
And I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
It's damn tough at this age to learn a new skill, especially like a piano and, instruments. You really grasp it like faster when you're a kid. Right now, it's like, which world am I in? But it's fun. It's fun because it's challenging me. So it's healthy challenging, so it's not like stressful challenge, it's healthy challenge. And I have heard a lot of people talk about learning a new skill. Now, I love learning new skills, but there's a science behind it and there's like there's benefits to learning new skills. So it could be a language, it could be learning a new activity, or it could be like learning an instrument, anything that's new that you're very unknown to, like you've never ever experimented with it. What benefits do these activities have on your brain health?
A lot. So I'm very glad that you brought this up, because one of the ways of, say, delaying dementia or Alzheimer's is by learning new skills, learning new languages.
Thank God I've started working on this path.
Exactly. And it's beautiful. And it's not that learning this will make up for all the bad decisions you make about your body. So if you are sleeping poorly and eating poorly, no amount of languages will save
Obviously.
you. And it's not that obvious. People don't understand this. We still have to keep saying it.
Yeah. Maybe
Right?
I get it because I'm a functional medicine practitioner, so I
Correct.
know. So it's like,
Natural to you.
it's very natural to
Correct.
me.
But
so-
people don't think so. People
Yeah.
feel that, oh, I've slept poorly, but next day let me go work out extra, or let me take some supplements and I will make up for it. But that's not how the body works. But supposing your core things are in place, learning a new skill is essentially forcing neuroplasticity to happen. Because one of the problems of adulthood is that we genuinely think that all the learning is behind us.
Yeah, and it's for the kids.
किड सीखते हैं ना,
हमको
हम लोग
हम
को क्या है, हम
बड़े हो गए हम।
बड़े हो गए, हम जो भी सीखना था सीख लिया.
Yeah, some people have asked me, piano सीख के क्या करेगी अभी? I said it's for my
Exactly.
soul satisfaction. I'm not going. I'm not like aiming to become a like a professional pianist or something. But it's for my own
Correct.
satisfaction.
And that is such an
क्या
outcome,
करेगी?
that's such a wrong outcome driven mentality कि अच्छा piano सीख के क्या अभी competition में जाएगी क्या?
हाँ,
But the act of learning is the reward in itself.
exactly.
Right. So recently I've started learning Rubik's Cube.
Ah,
And very similar reasons. I wanted to learn something that requires all my senses. So I wanted to be able to see, spot patterns, change patterns quickly, and something that uses both my hands. So similar to piano, so that you can develop those skills. It's not that I want to go into a competition, but simply having the satisfaction of going from solving a Rubik's Cube in 10 minutes to 5 minutes to 2 minutes. Now I'm at 2 minute 30 seconds. And at some point I want to breach that 2 minute barrier. I'm
Yeah.
waiting for it.
yeah.
So these are just skills that you develop, that you learn just to keep your brain sharp. So that your brain will never feel that I cannot learn something. It is almost as if you're proving to your brain that you can keep learning.
And you should keep
And
learning.
you should keep learning.
Yeah.
Right? So there are some skills like this. Another set of skills that I would want everyone to learn is something that requires balance. Very important.
So like, what kind of things?
It could be something simple like yoga.
Yeah.
So vrikshasana and anything that requires balancing on one leg, balancing on your hands, overall maintaining balance as your body moves. It could be roller skating. I'm guessing most people know cycling, but they should continue doing that. Anything that requires you to maintain balance will help you in a lot of ways as you grow older.
Or maybe as simple as walking on a safe edge.
Sure.
Somewhere you won't fall off from, but
Yes.
somewhere where you can just walk, like, on the footpath, you have this
Yeah.
the edge where you can just
Yeah.
walk on that and try to balance
Yeah.
it. Or
You should be safe.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Safe edge.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be unsafe.
Correct. And because falling is a risk, but the more balance you have, the more mind-body connection you're building. Because for you to balance yourself, every muscle in your body has to work in a certain pattern.
How about balancing book on your head?
Also, because
Or the lemon with the spoon in your mouth?
anything. So
So basically,
any sort of balancing exercise
hmm,
will be useful. Anything that requires hand-eye coordination, like bouncing a ball off a wall or
Right.
juggling or any racket sport, right? So tennis, badminton, anything that requires your eye to keep track of an
Pickleball
object,
now.
pickleball, anything is good. So more than football, I would say tennis and badminton is more helpful because there's a lot of hand-eye coordination involved. In football also there is, but at a higher level. Because हमारे level पे, where do we do those cross-field passes where we have to track the ball? We don't do that. But badminton requires a lot. Table tennis requires a lot. So anything with hand-eye coordination is useful for the brain. So these are certain things that you should just incorporate into your life so that overall your brain and your body are healthy.
Right. Amazing. Good, good. I'm so glad that inherently I feel like learning new skills. Like for me, it's like I want to. Every time I learn, I mean, I get onto one, I'm looking for the other skill now. Okay, what else can I try?
Yeah.
So now that I've learned piano like as a master, I'm
Yeah.
still learning. I just know how to play Happy Birthday very well now.
Amazing.
Which is making me so happy, I can't tell you.
Yeah.
It's so rewarding. I'm like, whose birthday is it next? Where's the piano? Bring it on.
Brilliant.
But yeah, but that's it's just fun, yeah. Why not?
Absolutely. And it's something that should never stop.
Yeah.
That sense of curiosity and learning should never stop.
You also spoke about Alzheimer's and dementia
Yeah.
and how these skills improve your memory, focus, concentration, and especially we're seeing a lot of Alzheimer's cases now,
Yeah.
a lot of Parkinson's cases.
Yeah.
How do you deal with such patients, and what's your protocol like? Like, how can people prevent, getting Alzheimer's and getting
Yeah.
Parkinson's?
The prevention starts very early. So if you are already 70 years old and you're thinking of prevention, first of all, congratulations on not having it so far. You've done something right.
Yeah.
Very honestly, I am scared for our generation because I'm already seeing patients who are coming with Parkinson and Alzheimer's at the age of 50, 55, which earlier was not the case.
Do you think it's the COVID vaccine? Because I've seen a lot of people after COVID experiencing memory loss and forgetfulness.
So after the pandemic, a lot of people had what we call brain fog, which can happen after any viral infection. So it is very, very possible that a lot of people had subclinical COVID itself that could have caused it. We don't know if the vaccine has caused it, but I will say that this is one of the vaccines that was developed in the shortest duration.
Yeah, with less trials.
Correct.
And,
So not a lot of
on
studies
it.
were done, and you understand why. Everybody was panicking. So as a species, we were panicking, and we would have literally jumped to any solution. Over a period of time, we learn more, and we feel like, oh, this should have been done, this should not have been done. For example, I remember how much panic there was about remdesivir and plasma. Plasma was being sold in the black market,
Yeah.
which was very silly because uska koi evidence nahi hai, uska koi advantage nahi hai. But in panicked situation, people will reach out for anything, right?
True.
The whole drowning man clutches at a straw. That's true. When you are all afraid, we reach out for anything. But viral infections can cause brain fog. Anything that causes inflammation in the brain can cause brain fog. So far, we don't know if that translates to dementia. What was happening was people were having trouble concentrating. Now, very difficult to say whether it's just because of that, or was it because for 2 years, we were all stuck at home without any stimulation from the outside world, and we just spent 24 hours staring at screens.
Yeah.
That has never happened before. And we truly don't know what are the effects of just staring at a screen all day.
True.
And from what I have seen of kids who come to my clinic, who are addicted to screens and who develop ADHD symptoms very early on, I truly believe that staring at that level of stimulus for a long time affects you in ways that we still don't fully understand.
Yeah. And we take it very lightly, I feel.
Yeah.
We're just not understanding the gravity of that, the problem that thing can create for us.
Yeah. Because I know when I was growing up, how much I used to love watching television, cartoons. But you know that when you leave the room, it's gone.
Yeah.
It's done. So when you go to school, when you meet your friends, you don't have that in your head. You know कि घर जाके हम देखेंगे. But now it's there with us always. And so there are kids who are iPad addicts. जब तक iPad सामने नहीं है वो खाना नहीं खाएंगे. वो सोने के पहले उनको iPad चाहिए, सुबह को iPad चाहिए. Throughout the day, it's just there.
Yeah.
So that means that their eyes and their brains are not getting any stimulation from the outside world.
Yeah.
We don't know what that will do over a period of time. So I am very glad that countries like Australia have passed that rule that kids below 16 can't get social media access.
Wow. Very nice.
It is, I believe it is important, and सब मिलके we have to decide to not let kids get so much screen exposure.
Yeah, because we had a switch off time. Like
Yeah.
we would switch off the TV, go down and play.
Correct.
Computers came in much later when we were actually in the second half of our teens.
Correct.
Probably that's when computers came in.
Correct. And there used to be a computer room.
Yeah.
कि ये रूम में कंप्यूटर है और 2 घंटे के लिए तुम खेल
And वैसे
सकते
भी
हो.
उस टाइम पे कंप्यूटर में कोई कलर नहीं होता था. There was not much stimulation. There was not. It was not so attractive. It was only that black and white screen which had words on it, and then eventually, all these things came up.
वो
But
एक
by
Dave
then,
game आया था.
and Mario and all that we used to play. But all these things came in much later when we were in college, and things were like, okay, we had other things to look forward to. It was not just the screens that we were addicted to. Yes, I was addicted to Mario. I'll confess. I remember in my 8th grade, I told my mom, I said, Mom, if I fail in my final exams, I'm telling you right away, it could be because of my addiction to Mario.
Wow.
I told my mom that.
Wow. That's a lot of insight for an 8th standard.
Yeah, because I was telling her, because I was a topper of my class, and always been first, second, like never seen the third rank.
Right.
So my mom was like, what is this? You're playing on the screen all the time. What is? I said, Mom, if I fail this time,
it's because of
blame
this.
the Mario, but I can't get over it. And I remember at this point how gripping that addiction was. Like I couldn't leave my seat.
Yeah.
And couldn't stop playing Mario.
Yeah.
So kids are forever like that now. Kids are just living that life.
Yeah.
They are addicted. They are constantly on the screen, and it's a sad plight. I feel like there's no other way they are using their brains.
It is a problem. It's a genuine problem, and society has to come to some sort of conclusion together. There is really no other way.
Because if one parent stops the child, then there are other kids who are doing it, and then there's so much FOMO and so much peer pressure, and then there's so much of your environment that's deciding how your child has to be brought up, because if he's not doing it, he's going to be left out.
Correct.
So I think it's a collective decision that the society will have to take to come up to a solution to protect the future of our nation, the youth.
Yes, I think so. There is a reason why we consider 18 as a cutoff, because as children grow, children are not born with a fully developed brain.
Yeah.
Their prefrontal cortex, which is the decision-making, sensible part of the brain, does not mature until almost 25.
25?
Yeah. So even 18 is an early cutoff.
Oh.
So why do we say 18? We say that, okay, after 18, somebody can drive because now they are sensible enough to take the right decisions.
Yeah.
But that means that till then, they are still learning. So putting so much of stimulation in their brains at a time when their brains are not fully formed, I think is possibly harming them. And do we really want to find out?
Yeah.
Right? So then I am very scared for our generation and seeing when will we start getting Alzheimer's. Because what if we start getting Alzheimer's at 40, 45? Then we will know that, whatever we did in the last 20 years was wrong. Yeah. But do we really want to do that? Do we really want to find out that way? So that is something that worries me. Right? So we should be careful. And because you asked about prevention of Alzheimer's, that's why I said about all this. Yeah. It starts much earlier.
Yeah.
And the one thing that would make a difference is sleep. Beyond everything else.
That was my next question. What does sleep do to our brain?
That's it.
What changes does sleep bring in our brain for the better?
Yeah. So sleep is when your brain clears out all the trash, all the junk that it has accumulated through the day. It gets cleared out in sleep. Suppose if you don't sleep for 1 day, 2 days properly, that junk gets absorbed into the brain itself. And that accumulates over time. And once it gets absorbed, it's difficult to bring it out. So over many years, if there's a lot of clutter in the brain, that can slow the brain's processing.
And that's what then eventually leads to Alzheimer's
dementia. Yes.
Wow. So that's how sleep is important.
Yeah.
And today we are all trading sleep for Netflix, OTT,
absolutely,
socializing, and just plain insomnia. People have just racing minds and they can't sleep because they're thinking about all the possible problems of their life.
Yeah.
But we need to prioritize sleep.
There's nothing else that's more important.
Yeah, I say that too. I mean, I always tell my clients, I said it's the most underrated activity of the day. You got to please focus and, prioritize your sleep, because also emotional healing doesn't happen, no? Because the brain is also clearing all the stored emotions. The processing of the emotions also happens when we are sleeping, right?
It does. Also, lack of sleep is in itself considered as a stressor.
Yeah.
So if you don't sleep, you are baseline afraid. of everything.
Oh, so you're more fearful as a
Of
person in general.
everything.
You're paranoid as a person.
You are just stressed. And because you don't know why you're stressed, all emotions will attach itself to some cause. So suppose if I haven't slept, I'm stressed out. I don't know why I'm stressed out. I won't say it's because I haven't slept, because I don't have that sort of awareness.
Yeah.
So now if my friend comes and tells a joke on me,
And
I
it
will get
triggers
angry at
you. It triggers you.
yeah, ऐसे कैसे बोल दिया? Because now my fear or anger has a outlet. So in general, you'll be more irritable, you'll have more fights, you'll be less productive through the day because you haven't slept. But you will blame everything but the sleep.
And you don't even realize it's the sleep because you never think of sleep as such an
Correct.
important activity. ठीक है ना,
Correct.
एक दिन नहीं सोए तो क्या हो गया?
क्या हुआ? So this changed for me after I started tracking my sleep. And I can see very clearly the days where I've slept well, how my next day was, and the days where I haven't slept well, how my next day was.
Yeah.
And once you see that, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
Then
I've started
you'll
doing
know.
that too, and it's making a big difference. Huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
It just makes it really, it's so clear that this is what needs to be worked on.
Correct. Correct.
So
You really
amazing.
demystify yourself. That's why I keep insisting that it's all on that fundamental layer.
Yeah.
If you're eating, sleeping, and moving, everything else becomes easier.
Right. What about stress? Most people are roaming very stressed and they don't realize they are stressed. And the sympathetic mode that the person is in, how is that affecting our brain and what does it do? Like technically, what is it doing in our brain?
Some amount of stress is great.
Hormetic.
Yes, that's when you know that something is important. So you get stressed when you value something, when you are aiming for a particular outcome. Some amount of stress is how your attention gets fixed to one thing. And you need that. If there is no stress, you won't end up doing anything. But chronic stress is the problem. Stress without relief, stress without rest. That is the problem. So people are roaming around stressed out because they are moving from stressor to stressor. They're stressed about traffic. They'll reach work. They're stressed about work. When they are on a break, they'll open their phones and they're on social media and they get stressed about that.
Yeah.
Because they'll see that everybody's doing things that I'm not.
Yeah.
Oh, this person is looking so much prettier. This person has bought a new house. Or some political statement that I don't agree with. I get angry. You are constantly stressed. And then you come back and usually people bring work back home and they're working on that. And then they're again, where is the rest? So the chronic sympathetic state that people are in will eventually have problems with their bodies as well.
Yeah.
Because that's what psychosomatic is. Stress leading to physical problems. And that sets off a whole other thing. Now they'll get neck pains, back pains. They will have skin problems. All this is like a consequence of chronic stress.
But particularly anything to the brain?
Interestingly, yes. So chronic stress leads to increased cortisol. Increased cortisol will lead to increased inflammation, and your brain will think that I'm under constant attack. So a few things will happen. Chronic stress will make the amygdala more active. So stress leads to you spotting more threat, and that will lead to more stress. Over a long period, that is what leads to anxiety. Because if your amygdala is more active, you are constantly spotting threat. इसने ये क्यों बोला, इसने ये क्यों? And you start becoming more and more anxious. So anxiety turns into anxiety disorder, where now you're anxious about things that earlier would not have made you anxious. Then certain other changes start happening in the brain. So your hippocampus starts shrinking. So that's where your memories are stored. So you will start having memory loss. And because you have memory loss, now you're not able to learn from your past. And so your actions will start getting affected. Then eventually your dopamine networks start going down. So you'll feel less and less happy. And that is when you lead to depression. So depression may, certain parts of your prefrontal cortex start shrinking. Now you're not able to take the right decisions. You're not able to focus for too long. That in turn affects your outcome. That in turn, makes you more stressed. So it's a loop.
It's a loop and a downward spiral.
It's a downward
completely.
spiral. Correct.
And also serotonin uptake, like what I've studied also in functional medicine, is that when you're very stressed out, obviously the gut is affected, the serotonin production is affected, but also the blood-brain barrier gets affected. So the serotonin uptake by the brain gets affected.
Yes, so all of these things are downstream effects of chronic inflammation. So your food, the way your food is absorbed, is directed by how your gut is functioning. So if you're very stressed, your gut will not function properly, or if you're eating the wrong foods, your gut will not function properly. That's why both of those things can affect each other.
Yeah.
So you could have wrong food leading to the wrong mood, or the wrong mood leading to the wrong foods.
food.
And then eventually, if there's inflammation, there's something called leaky gut.
Yeah.
So your gut membranes don't work as well. So there's a lot of bacteria that can go into the bloodstream, and that can lead to more inflammation, which in turn affects your brain more.
Which causes leaky brain then.
Sort of, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's also a good term
No, it's
to
a
have.
term. No,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
term.
absolutely.
In functional medicine, it's a term. We've
Correct.
studied about it. It's called leaky brain because then your brain is also leaking all the toxins into the brain.
Because the blood-brain barrier can get affected.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing is a cycle.
Yeah.
And once the cycle becomes too advanced, it's difficult to say where did it start from.
Yeah.
It almost doesn't matter. Everything is affected.
But can you reverse the damage
You can.
to the brain done because of stress?
You can. So we have seen patients of depression who have come to us as patients of paralysis.
Wow.
So
That's how it advanced?
So depression taken to its absolute end could either go into self-harm, which is a very, very, very difficult thing to even talk about and listen to. It can also look like Parkinson, where people are not walking properly, talking properly. There's something called catatonic depression, where somebody becomes fully paralyzed. But you do an MRI of their brain, there is nothing wrong in the brain, but they can't move. And it's just because of depression. And treating them medically, giving the right medications will pull them out. Of course, there's a long journey back to normalcy, but what has been noticed is even from there, a complete recovery is possible. Even the brain parts that have shrunk can come back with treatment. So that's why there is a lot of positivity at the end of it. There's a lot of optimism that I have that even if somebody's suffering from a mental health problem, they can come back.
They can.
It is possible because of neuroplasticity. Because the brain is capable of rewiring, it is possible.
Amazing. So there's hope.
There's absolutely
hope for people who are struggling with mental disorders.
Yes.
And you also talk a lot about flow state. I was going through your website and I saw you have a neuromastery course, which talks about flow state. So what's the flow state and how can one achieve that?
Flow state is when your emotions and your intention and your actions are all aligned.
Okay.
So what you want emotionally and what you say that you want and what you're doing, if they're all the same, then you're in flow state. So now you are not distracted by anything else because nothing else is distracting. Nothing else you want. You want to do only this. So if you're playing piano, playing the piano gives you joy.
Yeah.
You say that you want to be a piano player and you are actually playing the piano. What better outcome can there be? Right? So now every cell in your body is aligned with you playing the piano. So you have this feeling that there is nothing else that I would rather do in life in this moment. There's nowhere else I would rather be in life than this moment. So you are there. That is what flow state is. And it's a beautiful feeling.
Yeah.
If you can achieve that. Usually people achieve it in moments. Like for example, whenever I see a Garba dance event and people are really involved in that moment.
Absolutely.
I think everybody's in flow state.
They are in flow state, yeah.
And it's beautiful to see. And there's a reason why people enjoy it. There's a reason why people enjoy dancing so much. Even at a techno event, like when somebody is really, really involved in that music and just dancing, that is flow state. Because they would not want to be anywhere else in that moment. So they have forgotten about all their other problems, everything. In that moment, they are fully there. That is what flow state is. And it's a beautiful thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you got to do something that you love, enjoy, and experience the flow state. But there are times you can't always do things that you enjoy because you're maybe in a job that you don't enjoy, or maybe you're in a relationship that you don't enjoy, or you have to do certain tasks in the day to also just for your living, maybe,
Yeah.
So
we don't aim to be in flow state all the time because sometimes I feel that puts too much pressure on ourselves. but at least having that as an ideal state. Let's move towards it. So if there's something that you obviously don't enjoy, it's true that you might have to do it in that moment, but can you open the possibility that let's try to move away from this? If there's something about your job that you don't like, at least acknowledging that and saying, let me try to change the way I work, or in the future change my job and move towards something that I enjoy.
Or maybe add something in your life that helps you experience the flow state.
Exactly.
Great. Nice. I'm just loving this conversation, but because of time constraints, we have to get on to our next segment, which is myth and fact. So I'm going to ask you some questions. You have to answer them as myth or fact. And then if you want to add some of your information there, you can do that. All right. So the first one is sugar has no real effect on the brain function.
Oh, no, that's not true at all.
So that's a myth.
Yeah, sugar affects the brain quite a bit. In fact, sugar is especially refined sugar is quite addictive. So the brain can get addicted to sugar just like it can get addicted to cocaine or heroin.
Yes. Okay. Puzzles like Sudoku and crosswords actually help in preventing cognitive decline.
That's kind of true. It may not prevent it entirely because, like I said, there are many things that come together to cause dementia, but it does keep you learning. So it keeps that learning activity going, and that is a good thing.
So basically it helps you exercise your brain.
Correct. So it sort of forces you to keep that pressure on neuroplasticity on.
Great. Lack of sleep can permanently damage your brain.
That is true.
Okay. The brain feels no pain.
That is also true because the physical brain does not have any pain receptors.
Oh.
So if you open up somebody's skull and put a pin on the brain, you will not feel it.
But the brain actually sends out so many pain signals to the body.
Correct. In fact, I can cause you more pain by talking about pricking you with a pin than by actually pricking your brain with a pin.
Oh my God.
Because your brain can imagine
the
pin and create pain.
Oh my God. Like, we're really complex beings and there's so much that our brain can do.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Screen time has no impact on brain health.
Not true.
Not true. We spoke about that. Music can help people with memory loss, like in Alzheimer's.
Very true. I had a patient who had a problem in the left side of their brain. They had a tumor and they couldn't talk and they couldn't remember certain things. But she used to be a singer. And I asked her to sing a Lata Mangeshkar song, and she sang a 5-minute song perfectly without any words missing.
Wow.
Because the music was coming from the right side of her brain. And that was beautiful. So now more and more studies are being shown to help people through music and dance.
Yeah, music is actually a fantastic therapy.
Yeah.
You can train your brain to become more creative.
That is true. You can, because creativity at the end of the day is pattern recognition. And through exercising those specific pattern recognition, by practicing it, you can become more creative in that field.
Okay. We use only 10% of our brain.
That's not true. There is no such thing as what does 100% look like.
Okay.
So at any given point of time, you are using 100% of your brain. But what that 100% is keeps increasing.
Okay.
And we still don't know what is the upper limit.
So you can stretch your capacity of your brain basically.
Correct. It's sort of like you are born with a certain amount of transistors. Like you're born with a Nokia 1100.
Okay.
But that chip, with each iteration, you know how the chip becomes more and more efficient?
Yes.
That is what is happening. So the same brain, but the networks are becoming more and more dense, more efficient. So you are now working on a advanced chip.
Okay.
Sort of like that.
Great. I love the analogy. Brain cells stop regenerating once we reach adulthood.
No, that's not true. Earlier we thought that is true, but it turns out that there are some parts of the brain that can keep making new neurons, specifically the hippocampus. So if you are forcing the hippocampus to learn, that is one of the advantages. So if you learn a new skill at the age of 45, 50 also, in a way you're putting some pressure on the hippocampus to make new neurons.
Wow. So that's why learning what we spoke about is so important.
Correct.
Drinking more water can boost brain function.
not drinking water has a very bad effect on the brain. So yes, your brain needs water.
Water, yeah.
So if there is no water, the brain cannot do its regular function. Forget
Right.
about boosting.
Yeah. More dopamine always means more happiness.
No, that's not true. So dopamine has a very short-lived effect on happiness. So in fact, if I give you a chocolate and you think eating the chocolate makes you happy, actually the dopamine spike comes when you're unwrapping the chocolate. It's not even
The
the
anticipation of the activity
Correct.
or the reward is more rewarding than the reward
eating than the
itself.
reward itself.
Okay.
So dopamine has a very short-lived activity, and so if I keep giving you a chocolate every minute, the dopamine height will go on reducing. So by the 10th chocolate, you will not value
I
it.
won't get that hit of
Correct.
dopamine.
Correct. So you might have to go for something very different for that same amount of dopamine.
And that's how people get addicted, because then
Correct.
their dopamine hit their threshold of the dopamine hit increases, and
Yes.
then they want to experience more and more, so then they get addicted to
Correct.
more
and
things.
so at that level of conversation, you have to ask yourself, what is happiness? So is that kick what you call happiness, or is happiness something more long lasting,
And
something more deeper?
Yeah.
So that's the difference.
Listening to classical music makes you smarter.
So there are studies shown on, say, Mozart's symphonies that says that listening to those songs can help you focus better and can help you remember things better. Now, there are a lot of variables here, so it's absolutely not a straightforward thing. It's not
Right.
like a pill, but music can help you focus because it blocks off other sounds. If there is something repetitive going on, you are able to tune out other distractions while at the same time being occupied by that song. So then you are able to focus on your task better, which in turn makes you smarter.
Okay.
So from that perspective, yes, you can use music. In fact, I would encourage everyone to experiment with this and figure out what songs or what kind of instrumental songs will make them focus better. I have a playlist that works for me. Everyone should experiment with this and come up with their own playlist. Very useful.
Interesting.
Very useful.
Nice. So with that, we come to the last segment, which is
Okay.
our rapid fire,
Okay.
which can be more rapider than the myth and fact.
Sure.
So if your brain had a theme song, what would it be?
It would probably be like a soft instrumental song. Or there is a song by this band called Head and the Heart called Just Let's Stay Still. I would really like that to be my theme song.
Okay.
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah.
That was a good one. What's a book that changed the way you think?
So on one end of the spectrum is Bhagavad Gita. Every time I've read that book, it has made me think of things differently. On the other end, there's a book by a British author called Douglas Adams called Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Okay.
It is a comedy book. It's a humorous book, which has a very philosophical take on life.
Okay.
And similar to the Bhagavad Gita, every time I've read that book, I've understood life at a deeper level, even though it's a humorous book. So I would say these two books.
Lovely. Morning person or night owl? When does your brain work best?
I have always been a night owl, but over the last 2-3 years, I have made a conscious choice to shift, and I found that shifting is not so difficult.
Yeah.
I've been able to shift, and I've been able to work very well in the morning. So it depends on your habits and your experience, but most people think that shifting is not possible, but that's not true.
Great. What's the first thing you do when you wake up?
So I have been doing some movements. So I would walk around the house for at least 10 minutes. I have a balcony, there's a garden, so I would sit there for a while. And then after 10 to 15 minutes, I would have coffee. This is
Morning ritual.
morning ritual.
One word your friends would use to describe you.
I would say, depending on the year of friendship, so in the first 2-3 years, friendly, then complex, and then they would go back to friendly.
Okay. What's the one thing you never leave home without?
I mean, the phone is an obvious thing. Recently, I have had a health tracker. It's a Whoop one, and it's on my ankle, right? So I
Oh,
don't know
you're
if
wearing it on your ankle.
Yeah.
My husband has it. He wears it on his
yeah,
wrist.
on
but
my
yeah.
wrist. So I have tried it on the wrist for a while, but I find it difficult to sleep with it.
Yeah.
And the ankle is really useful because I forget it's there.
Yeah, but does that work the same way?
Absolutely. I did a
Great hack. I'm going to
comparison.
tell my husband to wear it on his ankle.
Yeah, he has the Whoop.
Yeah.
It's very useful because you never have to take it off to charge. It's just the charger just comes
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah.
I'm very happy with it.
Nice. If you could instantly master any instrument, what would it be?
So I'm already sort of 7 years into playing the guitar. So I would really love to go all in and learn that. Yeah.
A place on your travel bucket list.
So there's this group of islands called Galapagos that I want to dive in. So I love scuba diving, and that's really top of my diving list.
Nice. If your life had a title, what would it be?
Where are these questions from? I've attended rapid fire questions. I've never had questions like this before. Title of my life. I used to have a blog called Wire to Win, and the idea was that your brain already has all the necessary wirings to succeed at anything if you just allow it. So I would say that.
That's a nice one, but Wired to Win. That
Yeah.
could be the title of your life. Nice. What's a hobby you wish you had more time for?
Diving for sure. I go twice a year, but I would really love it if I could go more often.
Great. With that, we come to an end with the rapid fire round and our podcast. And before you go, I want to give you a nice, healthy hamper.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
So this is a thoughtful hamper by Urban Platter, and there are all things healthy in there. So
Beautiful.
that's for you and your family. Hope you enjoy it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yes, and thank you so much for being here and really giving all your wisdom about brain health and really changing my brain in so many ways with this conversation. Just that.
Happy to do it. Thank you.
No, but it was great having you here, and thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching this podcast till the end. And if you've learned a lot about brain health just the way I did, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and share it with your friends and family who may benefit from this. And also subscribe to Neha Ranglani Shorts, where we put up bite-sized videos. And I'll see you in another episode with some more insightful information.